Hello and welcome to this Mobalytics video, the picks of the patch for 10.1. I'm Virkayu and I will be your host, and in this video our experts and challenger coaches have compiled a list of the best 10 picks that you can use for each position in this patch. Do let us know in the comments if you have tried any of these picks and perhaps if you have any hidden OPs yourselves. And with that said, let's get straight into it. Starting off with the top lane, we are going to begin with Mordekaiser. He's been a staple in the top lane for quite a few patches now, including being quite strong in 9.24. In 10.1, his passive was nerfed, to make him a little bit less sticky for the melee AP juggernaut that he is, but it's important to note that he is still an amazingly consistent champion, specifically in the lower brackets. If you're wondering what to play going into the season and maybe you're learning top lane, Mordekaiser is a great reliable top laner that gets you wins and literally smashes opponents with a giant mace as they get accustomed to understanding what medieval torture was all about. The core items are, as they have always been, Rylai's, Liandry's, Zhonya's. This gives you a nice 3-item power spike to dominate the mid game. And when you want to sustain that lead you have and perhaps, obliterate an ADC to the Shadow Realm, Conqueror, Taste of Blood, Ravenous Hunter as you rake in that sweet LP. Our second pick for the top lane is Ult Hat, but Jax did get a change to his ultimate so that it works with Rageblade in 10.1. Ginsu's or Jinsu's or whatever tomato Rageblade you build has a ton of synergies that Jax can exploit and turn him into the ultimate split pusher, no pun intended, and this lets him take down towers incredibly quickly if he's left alone. This is because of the insane damage output you have, and if the enemy team sends only one person to deal with you, you don't really mind, you can take them out very quickly and carry on your way. This means you will need to know how to play around macro and teamfights because your survivability will be lacking considering the squishier build. However, in these games we have huge leads and you can TP flank in and basically assassinate an AD carry or something like that, this of course is always a great option. However, the split push is the focus, and to do that you need Trinity Force, Titanic Hydra, and Rageblade. Do not forget that the stacks will come through on the Rageblade with your ultimate in addition to the added resistances, so do not underestimate your 1v1 power, because along with these items you will have the Conqueror rune at your side, Alacrity, Triumph. You want to make sure you go magical footwear, which is appropriate for someone who tries to hit you with a lamppost, and also along with that a magical tonic that aids in your corrupting potion for lane sustain and lane domination. And now we're going to take a stroll in the woods, and the queen of the jungle is really back, and she's back with a vengeance. Elise has been the best early game AP pick in the jungle for over a few patches. Actually, you can scratch that, she's been one of the best early game jungles period in the jungle for a few patches. She provides a nasty pick potential with her cocoon, unnatural level 3 tower dives with her repel, and because the aggressive, gang-heavy early game junglers are dominating the meta in Season 10, because experience isn't what it once was, this makes her an elite choice for the jungle, and if our favorite bearded Viking Olaf is banned, this is a great backup. For itemization, you have the standard build, Blue Smite into Runic Echoes, Oblivion Orb, and Zhonya's. Remember, you don't need to finish Morello's before you go into the Zhonya's, that orb is perfectly good enough to give you the flat penetration for the early game spike. And on the note of early game spikes, that means Electrocute is definitely the one you want. Cheap Shot, Zombie Ward, Relentless Hunter, Nimbus Cloak, Water Walking. You will have a lot of mobility around those skirmishes, around those dives, boost the movement speed in the skirmishes as well as Scuttle Crab control. However, just remember you can substitute Zombie Ward, which is more of a high elo pick, into that eyeball collection to really snowball into the mid game with unprecedented levels. We do recommend going Blue Grump into red or Blue Grump Wolves into red depending on the nature of the game, but that level 3 invade and that level 3 gank really needs to be on your mind, so make sure you know before you go into the game which lanes are gankable and where you want to go first. And for our second jungle pick, if Elise looks too intimidating, then you can try picking up, okay, well for some reason it says Naked Mole Rat. I don't really know, I think Rexa kind of has a nice little charming quality to her face, but perhaps the one area we can agree on is that she does bite pretty hard. That win rate has spiked nicely recently with the early game focus and people remembering that she is still quite powerful. In high elo, she's definitely in the top 5 picks. You've got the Lee Sin and the Echo as well floating in there. Her menacing early game is really abused best when you actually have a duo. Take a Katarina, level 3 mid, flash W, get the kill, go top lane, get another kill, get the crab, go back to mid lane. The pathing that you can use can be very similar to Elise in that you can go red, blue, grump, and then straight into the level 3 gank. You can also handle quite a lot of invades. You do have the option of going still red, Krugs, and Raptors. It isn't used as much anymore, but again, like Elise, you really want that level 3 gank and early pressure. For itemization, you want these Stalker's Blade Warriors. You don't want to be going Tiamat. That is absolutely wasting gold on a different item that prioritizes farming, and it doesn't nearly match the stats, the CDR, the AD that you get from the Blue Smite that can really help you take over a game quickly. In essence, you're looking to be, as we would say on my channel, a raw spud jungler, which is just a weird way for saying go with the alpha playstyle. After Warriors, you can go Umbral Glaive to deny even more vision and further your early game dominance, but the core itemization is still Warriors, Black Cleaver, GA, and Sterix, and along with Hail of Blades, Cheap Shop, Zombie Ward, and Relentless Hunter has a nice little early game package. Of course, again, if you're a low MMR, you can go Eyeball Collection just to make sure you're stacking that AD for the mid game win. You do have the option of Nimbus Cloak and Water Walking for river dominance, but Triumph and Alacrity are core choices also. And with all this talk about movement speed, let's run it down to the mid lane. Rumble has been a thing for a little while, but going into Season 10, it's one of the strongest pocket pick mid laners in the game. His laning phase is extremely good, being manaless of course. He can push and poke endlessly, he can contain the enemy mid and deal some good damage, which is really useful when enemy mids are trying to shove and roam. His items are relatively cheap in the form of Leandri, Zhonya's, and Morellos. Just remember again, pay attention to when you do need the full Morellos passive, although with all the Conqueror and Olaf running around, you're probably going to need it. But these items do grant him huge boosts in power, which is even more ideal after the dragon changes. This has forced fights and skirmishes to occur more frequently, and a well-placed equalizer is more than enough to burn through an entire team. Now, using the interesting rune set of Arcane Comet, of course Scorch synergizes very nicely with the abilities and the thematic if you're into that, as well as Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter for that lane sustain. This means Rumble relies on generating big early leads through raw damage, securing the good old Rift Herald for the tower obliteration, as well as getting those dragons. You do want to hope for an early Dragon Soul before his base values start to fall off, and that is kind of what determines whether a champion is good late game or not, but with these runes, with these items, and understanding his win conditions, we are confident you can get some LP. And the second choice on our mid lane list, Katarina. Note the healing build is a very different way to play. Gunblade, Death Stance, and Zhonya's. Now normally you would see a Gunblade rush into regular AP, but the Death Stance with Conqueror has less damage, but it's way harder to shut her down with the heals and the bleed. She still has very decent AD ratios in her kit, and has an insane early to mid game spike after just the Gunblade purchase. As she snowballs her lead and gets even more of these core items we just mentioned, she really can take over games, especially in the early season when people are still getting back into the rhythm of things, not using those good habits, and the way she can roam, tower dive, and clean up kills around dragon fights is really underrated and really underestimated in terms of positioning. There's not a lot of CC around in this current meta with people trying to win as fast as possible, and that's her weakness. Should it get to the late game, of course you group up, you CC her down. But in early game metas, mid game win conditions, that doesn't really happen as much, and such her resets and her scaling becomes a little bit comical. Straying away from the domination first page, she also needs the Conqueror to sustain herself with the healing build. Tenacity is great because CC is her enemy. Sudden Impact and Ravenous Hunter aid in the healing and the AP stacking of the Conqueror. And all we have to say is if you get fed, enjoy getting 20 kills because it's really fun. And if you don't like mixing AD and AP because you're a purist, you like smacking towers with your long range auto attacks, and perhaps you just love being one shot by a Rengar, ADC's for you, and our pick for this patch is Lucian. And the reason for that is based around the build. Essence Reaver, Infinity Edge, and Rapid Fire Cannon give you an insanely high damage burst at those first two items. You mostly need to play around your full combo and passive shots. It gives you more damage in lane, but of course less sustain. And despite that rhyme rivaling all of Dr. Seuss, the reason is because you are going press the attack instead of Conqueror. And along with the fairy worn boots as well as the biscuit you get with your afternoon tea, Lucian's damage will scale better with this build. And it really has to because all other ADCs scale really hard with the damage also. With it, you can fight way more in lane, you are less support reliant, which is probably good because they're in the bush thinking about the next Star Guardian skin, and this makes laning phase, in the words of our experts, not too hard. But remember, please be aggressive and please snowball. And if you do like to snowball and basically entirely by accident, Jinx is our second AD carry pick. She's very reliable, she has high range, great AoE with her Q. You basically just have to right click. And that's not to offend any ADC mains or Jinx mains. I for one take great pride in defending your ability to do right clicking. Her laning phase damage is quite decent, she has good follow up with her E as well as that global R ultimate that you can miss just a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right. You know, it's a team unify, everyone kind of gets behind when you do eventually hit it. And of course, if you do like getting excited by hitting towers, that's what her passive literally does, makes you excited. But once you've blasted through those plates and towers with your minigun, which does accelerate the game, her passive makes it easy to kite, and if you get that first kill in the fight, it means no one can easily lock you down. 1 turns into 2, 2 turns into 3. And to do this, you want Infinity Edge, Rapid Fire Cannon, and to rock the enemy like a hurricane. Start off by going IE into crit cloaks because your rockets will hit harder, and remember, that's AoE. And Infinity Edge first means you do get more value out of these crits. So eat your grits to get those crits. I couldn't help myself, that's terrible, I'm so sorry. To make it up to, I give you the room page, Lethal Tempo, Triumph, Bloodline, Again, magical footwear and biscuit delivery, bit of lane sustain, a bit of permanent mana. Don't have to worry about buying boots because you're gonna forget anyway while you chase your Infinity Edge, so all of a sudden you will just become faster, and honestly, as an AD carry, that's kinda nice. And finally, because I made fun of them earlier about Star Guardian skins, let's go to the supports. Nami has always been a strong one, and was sitting in S tier for a large portion of the Season 9 tier list anyway. With the buffs to her E in 10.1, she will be back into the S tier roster with literally no worries at all in Season 10. She might even border on the OP side. She's a lane bully who has the benefit of healing and dealing damage. She's really good into utility, she's pretty good against mages, but she does struggle against hard engage, and that's the problem because Nautilus still exists. For itemization, you want to go Ardent, Sensor, Redemption, and Athene's pretty straightforward support items. Just be really careful when you're looking to poke, preferably trying to harass the enemy when they're missing an ability or out of position. With that in mind, always keep an eye on your own positioning when trying to harass so the enemy doesn't turn the exchange around, especially against champions like Thresh, Blitzcrank, Alistar, or that pretty boy Rakan. For the runes, you must go Airy, Mana Flow Band, Transcendence, and Scorch, as well as again Biscuit Delivery, and for the final rune we do suggest a Cosmic Insight. When you have a lot of CDR in your kit and you have utility with the items, the extended cooldown cap as well as the shortened cooldown on item activation can very easily turn teamfights around. And for the final pick, well, we have a spicy one here, Heimerdinger support. So when mid lane didn't end up being the best place, he took over the bottom lane, and now that they didn't like that, he's not going to dominate support. He's a counter to many of the S tier champions. If the enemy walks forward to trade, his turrets can deal a lot of damage in return, in case you weren't aware of that when you walked into his turrets and they did a lot of damage. He can prevent hard engage purely by standing near or behind his towers, and he is really good at turning ganks around, and all junglers know when he is meta they have a horrible time ganking a Heimerdinger lane. Also, just as I mentioned, this is a gank heavy meta, so having someone like that in support can be really invaluable. When combined with a poke ADC, the Donger is one hell of a lane bully. And to aid you in this noble endeavor, Spell Thieves, Zhonya's, Ludens. Dish it out, get the kills, and then buy a house to stack all your money. Or if you're really fed, perhaps a giant red cap. For runes, this will change Arcane Comet, Mana Flow Band, Absolute Focus, and Scorch. You're noticing the trend with the Scorch from the support position. Finally, do make sure you have that biscuit apparently, as everyone must. But perfect timing is an excellent choice if you are going to be rushing Zhonya's in every game. Remember, it gives you the free stopwatch and also reduces the activation time on Zhonya's, Stoneplate, and Guardian Angel by 15%. If you're against a Rengar or a Zed, that can really irritate them. They are really more annoyed by that than the pleasure they get from one-shotting ADCs. Okay, there you have it, the top 10 picks. I hope you can find success with at least one of them in your role. Please don't forget to like, share, and comment if you enjoyed and learned something. Don't forget to subscribe for more Mobalytics content coming very soon. Best of luck in the first patch of Season 10. I have been Virkayu, and as always, I will see you all in the next video.